Now I have to shout out Floydian for letting me check this out. Floydian's been letting me borrow a bunch of knives, and he's been really awesome to our channel and been really awesome to us. Thank you, brother. We really appreciate all your support. Thank you so much. Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife, Kara, is at work, and this is the Spyderco Dragonfly in HAP40 and 410 steel. It is a San Mai blade. What is San Mai? San Mai is basically a layer, or the core of the steel is going to be one steel, and then the outer layer of the steel is another. That's why you see that line. That's the core coming out. In this case, it's a more harder, more durable steel, and then the covering is a more stainless steel. So you'll get great edge retention with a more stainless of a steel, because HAP40 is not a stainless. Now, I don't know a lot about HAP40, and I wanted to get my own impressions of it, so I didn't really do a lot of research on it or anything like that. So I wanted to kind of get my own interpretation of it and what I think of it. So if I'm wrong about anything, I apologize. It's just, you know, the way I've, you know, from using it and sharpening it and everything. And I did sharpen it, and we'll get into that in just a second. But first, let's kind of talk about the Dragonfly itself, because this knife does come in other blade steels and other handle materials, so on and so forth. So this obviously is a smaller knife. The blade length is 2¼ inches long and 5½ inches overall. Here is the Spyderco Chaparral, which you can see is a bit bigger, and this is a small knife as well. So here is the Kaiser Shard, another very small knife, almost as long as the Dragonfly. And then here is the CJRB Swags knife, the Maileah, which is basically the same length. They are very, very similar. And even though it's such a small knife, I can't actually get a full grip on this knife because of this front choil. Now, the front choil area makes it to where you only have 2 inches of blade length, and we'll get into cutting here in just a second. But it's actually rather comfortable for such a small knife. I mean, it's not it's definitely not a neutral grip at all, but it's set up pretty good for your 2 fingers to go in there, your forward finger to go there, and then your pinky to kind of wrap around there. And then because the jimping is done so well on this, it makes it to where you got a great pinch, you know, and it's really locked in. I tend to kind of use it a lot like this, you know, for opening stuff up, you know, more utility cuts. But it does slice just fine. And let's talk about its cutting, because surprisingly this thing, or not even surprisingly I guess, because it does have a very thin blade stock, but it cuts so good. It's not extremely thin behind the edge, about 18 thousandths, but man, it passes through very well. Now I did have a little bit of trouble with the blade coming out of the material I'm cutting, you know, every so often, but you do get used to it, and you know, you learn to, you know, keep the blade inside the material, not let it pop out. But being only a 2-inch blade, that's going to happen. But passing through materials, man, it cuts like a dream. It cuts very, very, very well. Now, with cutting in a utility cutting setting, or, you know, doing utility cuts, man, this thing is a beast. It just does utility cuts so good. And, you know, you have so much leverage down into the material for such a small, compact knife that, you know, and the tip is very acute, you know, and it has that, you know, that dagger shape, you know, it's a drop point, but, you know, where it really has like an arrow setting to the blade shape that just really penetrates and gives you a lot of leverage in the utility cuts. Definitely like the way this thing cuts and performs. It definitely cuts and performs way above its size grade, I guess, or pay grade, whatever you want to call it. You wouldn't expect something this compact to just be so awesome and cut so good. Now, carrying it in and out of the pocket, man, the clip works fantastic. The wire clip is really nice. It goes in and out of the pocket perfectly. I did have a couple times where like this little corner right there would kind of snag my pants, but not a big deal at all. In and out of the pocket is just fine, and it carries so good. It's such a small, light knife that you forget you even have it in your pocket, and it makes it to where, you know, you can carry it very easily as a fifth pocket or as a secondary knife, you know, where, you know, you save your bigger knife to do the bigger jobs, and this is your backup knife, or, you know, like the knife you do the smaller task with, which is sometimes primarily what you use a knife for. A lot of times the smaller tasks are the most important, you could say, or what you do the majority of. So it's going to work great as that. And I can see a lot of people even using it as a primary knife, just using this, you know, throwing this in their pocket and having it as their knife because it works so good. Now for the action, because, you know, pulling it in out of your pocket, you want to make sure it has good action. It's going to be more of a slow roller, but you can flick it. But let's talk about the slow roll really quick, because it is just a quick circle and it's using the hole. It's actually pretty satisfying to open, and, you know, it's very easy to open. But when you do want to flick it, which is going to be a little bit tougher, put your finger in the hole and you put pressure aiming this way, not out. If you go out, it'll just stop. You want to aim the pressure that way, and then slowly push the pressure straight up. So I'm putting pressure this way, and now I'm slowly going up towards the top, and then I flick. And since I'm putting so much pressure kind of straight up, basically, it's basically the pressure straight up and kind of this way a little bit, and it flies out. Same thing with the reverse flick. If you're going to reverse flick it, you're going to want to put the pressure kind of back behind it and then slowly push the pressure straight up and then release, and it works just fine. Now, everybody's made sure they've told me every time I talk about the little dent in the back lock, that's called the Boyd dent. So thank you guys for that. And that's what makes it, one, so you don't press it when you're holding the knife to disengage it, but it also makes it a lot more comfortable to disengage. And since you have this front choil area, when you unlock and spring it forward, it hits it, you know, has a spot to basically stop on your finger. So push the button just like this and then slap it forward. Or you can do the other way where you put your middle finger there, push the button and kick it forward with your pointer finger. And then there's also obviously the traditional two-hand way, obviously, but it's very easy to do one-handed still without an issue. Now, you do have resistance, being this is the back lock, so when you are opening it, this is giving you a lot, you know, a bunch of resistance. So it's until you get past right there is where it gets easier. Then from there, it's very easy. But then when you unlock it, it's, you know, very easy all the way to here. Then it starts getting a little tougher right there. And then you get past it and it sucks it in. Nice and centered. Great little compact knife. And like I said, it does come in other materials. So we do have T8s on the pivot and the clip, and then T6s right there, reversible clip. Now let's talk about sharpening it, because now we're going to get into the steel. Now, I did get it, when I got it, it had a polished edge, and we'll get into why I'm saying that. It wasn't really a polished, but it was a higher grit. And we'll get into why I'm talking about that here in 1 second. So here's a picture of the edge that it came with, and this is after I have used it quite a bit, but it didn't have a lot of bite. So I wanted to sharpen it and see if it was basically the kind of steel that does good at a lower grit and probably not so good at a higher grit, because I noticed, you know, at the grit it was at, it didn't have a lot of bite. So I started sharpening it. I started sharpening on diamond stones because, you know, I wanted to see how it did on a diamond stone, and I was using my venev diamond plates. Started with my lowest grit, and, you know, it sharpened up just fine. I had a little bit of trouble down by the heel, but, you know, for the most part, the steel felt just fine on the stone, and it sharpened up really good. And I noticed as I progressed through my grits. I got to my 4th grit and it started losing bite. I noticed that, you know, and that's not a crazy high grit. I could have went a lot higher. It's not even quite a mirror, but I noticed that, you know, that's basically the first step to starting a mirror, but not quite a mirror. You still see a lot of grit on the edge. And yeah, it was losing bite. So I said, nope, I got to drop it back down. So I went back down to the last stone, the 3rd stone that I was sharpening on. And sharpening on the 3rd stone, or, you know, after, you know, finishing on the 3rd stone, I put it on, I just used it on, or I knocked the burr off on a ceramic rod. It came off very easily, no problem at all. It just came right off. And then I stropped it on, and I used the ceramic stone that was on, or the ceramic rod that was on the field sharpener, the Work Sharp field sharpener. And I just used the same strop that was on there. Since the burr came off so easily, I didn't even really need to use the strop, to be honest. The edge was so crispy after stripping that burr off that it really didn't even need to be stropped, but I did it anyways. So all in all, I you know, and with the edge retention from the polished edge I got, or should I say the type of edge it had before, it didn't have a lot of bite, but it still cut very well. So I had no issues using it, but I did know that I would have rather had some bite in the edge. So I think this steel does good at a low grit. I don't think it does good at a high grit. I think sharpening it with a mirror edge or a high grit is not good. I don't think the steel, you're going to get the best performance out of this steel. I think if you want the best performance out of the steel, you're going to want to sharpen it at a very low grit. Now I'll show you the edge through some paper really quick, just to show you the edge I put on it. And then here is the way it looks. It looks pretty good. You can see it's basically, I did, I think it was 50/40 micron, which equals to almost 600 grit. So it's basically a 600 grit edge. And this is a good edge, I think, for this steel, or lower, because it, you know, like I said, if I go up any higher, I start losing bite from the edge, which usually is a good indicator that that steel doesn't do good with a mirror edge. So that's basically what I've gotten out of this steel. Remember, this is the only time I've ever tried this steel. So I don't have a lot of experience with it, and you know, it's not like I have other knives to compare it to, but on this example, on this knife, with the first experience of this steel, that is what I've gotten out of it. Now, I will say that I think this thing, the HAP40 has good edge retention, because the edge that I had on it before, or the edge that was on it before, that one that wasn't, that didn't have a lot of bite, I got a lot of cutting out of it before it wouldn't cut no more. So, I mean, it was done by the time I sharpened it, and it definitely needed a new edge, but I mean, it was a while. Like, I almost felt like I was doing cuts that were unnecessary just to get, to get the edge retention, or just to, you know, like, not damage the edge, but just to make sure it needed a new edge. Because you know, by the time I was ready to sharpen it, I probably didn't even need to. So I just continued using it until I basically didn't have an edge left. And yeah, it definitely has good edge retention. So definitely happy with that. And, you know, if I'm going to say anything bad about this knife, the one thing is that freehanding it gets sore on the stone, man. It's just uncomfortable to hold on to something this small and, you know, and sharpen it. But that's not really this knife bad thing. That's more of a, you know, a small knife thing. And the one sides of the screws are, you know, they're like Chicago screws where they're pushed, you know, they're like pins, and then you know, you have a screw on this side, you know, where this is just like a tube and this screws in. And then there are 2 T6s. I'd rather see T8s there, but it's really not that big of a deal on something this small. So all in all, there's really nothing too bad about this thing. This thing is amazing. Like I said, it's a little knife. It's a big knife in a little body. I mean, aside from having only 2 inches of blade and the blade popping out of the materials you cut, this thing's pretty amazing. I mean, it just works so good. And I'm surprised how awesome this little knife is. And then when you get to a good steel like this, you know, on it, it's just, you know, wow. Very, very awesome. I see why so many people love this little thing. It just works so good, especially for the little detail work that you run into with a knife. And then if you do need to do some like big knife stuff, it can improvise and work. You know, obviously it's not going to be prying or, you know, doing crazy stuff, but for primarily cutting, you know, you can get by with it. All right, guys, I love you guys. Thanks for watching. And Floydian, thank you for letting me check this out. Peace.